It is difficult to find a more unlikable person than Lindsey Graham these days. He is a spineless coward, he lacks principle, and he is consistently humiliating our country as he abandons not only American values, but values that he espoused not even like months ago, weeks ago. He is constantly going back on his word, and in doing so, he embarrasses himself. He's not liked by Democrats, obviously. He's not liked by Republicans, both in the Senate and his own voters, and he's not liked by Donald Trump. So what are you accomplishing besides hurting yourself, your legacy, in our country, Lindsey? Well, those are the questions that Bernie Sanders was answering in a brutal takedown of Lindsey Graham and the entire MAGA abandonment of Ukraine that we're going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into Bernie's takedown of Lindsey Graham, first, I think we have to check out the clip that perfectly shows how much of an embarrassment he is.
I want to tell you and your people, you're the ally I've been hoping for all my life. Not one American has died defending Ukraine. You've taken our weapons and you've kicked their ass. And I'm very proud to have you as our ally.
And I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelenskyy again. I think most Americans saw a guy that they would not want to go in business with. The way he handled the meeting, the way he confronted the president was just over the top. So I think the relationship between Ukraine and America is important, vitally important. But can Zelenskyy do a deal with the United States? After what I saw, I don't know.
So, of course, this is not a special example. There are many Republicans who have clips of themselves from months ago or a couple of years ago saying and doing the right thing, standing up for our ally in Ukraine. But like days ago, Lindsey, and you've gone back on your word, gone back on that assertion, gone back on your praise for Zelenskyy. That's almost like impressively quick if it wasn't so disappointing and disgraceful. And that is exactly what Bernie Sanders is calling out. And I want to take a look right here.
This question: do you think that President Zelenskyy needs to resign in order for there to be a peace deal?
I think that is a horrific suggestion. Zelenskyy is leading a country trying to defend democracy against an authoritarian dictator, Putin, who invaded his country. And I think millions of Americans are embarrassed, are ashamed that you have a president of the United States who says that Ukraine started the war, that Zelenskyy is a dictator. He's got it exactly backwards. The people of Ukraine have lost tens of thousands of soldiers. Their cities are being bombed as we speak. And our job is to defend the 250-year tradition that we have of being the democratic leader of the world, not turn our backs on a struggling country that is trying to do the right thing.
And we will continue to follow that, of course, Senator. We have a lot to get to, so I'm going to talk about budget cuts and switch topics here so we can get to that as well. You heard Speaker Johnson argue that there's massive amounts of waste, fraud, and abuse in entitlement programs like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. In fact, the Government Accountability Office does say that both Medicare and Medicaid made more than $100 billion in payment errors in 2023. Let me ask you, Senator, Democrats were in charge for 4 years. Should the Democratic Party have done more to address some of those issues with the insolvency of our entitlement programs?
And Trump was in power 4 years before that. Look, if there is waste and fraud in the Defense Department, which is the largest single budget item that we fund, which has not been able to fulfill an independent audit in the last 7 times, where there's massive waste and fraud, we should go after waste, fraud, and abuse in every agency of government. There's no argument about that. But let us be very clear. What Republicans are trying to do right now is to make massive cuts in Medicaid, over $800 billion, cuts in nutrition programs which feed hungry children. Why are they doing that? because they want to be able to use those savings to provide over $1 trillion in tax breaks for the richest 1%, for the Elon Musks and the Zuckerbergs and the Bezoses of the world. In my view, you don't take food away from children, health care away from struggling people to give tax breaks to billionaires. Do we go after waste and fraud in every agency of government? Yes, we do.
Well, let me ask you about Social Security. And you raised Elon Musk, Senator, so let me follow up with you on this very point, because he's made some very pointed comments about Social Security. I referenced it earlier in the broadcast. This was to Joe Rogan. I'd like you to hear it and get your reaction on the other side. Take a look.
Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. Basically, people are living way longer than expected. And there are fewer babies being born. So you have more people who are retired and that live for a long time and get retirement payments. So the future obligation. So however bad the financial situation is right now for the federal government, it will be much worse in the future.
Senator, President Trump says he's not going to touch Social Security. Elon Musk calls it a Ponzi scheme. Do you agree?
No, I think what Musk, the wealthiest guy in the world, just said is totally outrageous. That's a hell of a Ponzi scheme when for the last 80 years, Social Security has paid out every nickel owed to every eligible American. Quite a Ponzi scheme. What is in fact a problem is that if we don't make reforms and improve the funding mechanism, in the next 9 years, the Social Security Trust Fund, which provides about 20% of the funding, will go broke. So what we have got to do, and I think most Americans agree, and I've just introduced legislation to do that, is you lift the cap on taxable income. Right now, Musk, worth $400 billion, contributes the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund as somebody making $170 million. You lift that cap, we can extend the solvency of Social Security for 75 years, and you can raise benefits. Kristen, right now in America, half of elderly people are trying to get by on $30,000 a year, 22% on $15,000 a year. We've got to raise Social Security benefits. We've got to expand Medicare to include hearing, dental, and vision, not go after these programs which are so important to millions of our seniors.
I want to talk about what you have been doing recently, Senator. You've been crisscrossing the country, talking about warning of what you say is an oligarchy in the United States. We're seeing some video of that right here. Some Democrats argue the best action right now for the party to counter Donald Trump is to do nothing at all. Democratic strategist James Carville wrote this, quote, "Roll over and play dead. Allow the Republicans to crumble beneath their own weight and make the American people miss us." Senator, what say you? Do you think that's a good idea?
No, I don't. In fact, the problem is the Democrats have been playing dead for too many years. 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck. We have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had in the history of this country. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country. Millions of seniors are struggling to heat their homes and put food on the table. I don't think you play dead. I think you stand up for the working class of this country and make the point that right now the Trump administration is clearly an administration designed to represent the interests of the Musks of the world. 13 of the people that he nominated to head agencies are billionaires. You know, Kristen, when Abraham Lincoln was in Gettysburg, looking out on the field where so many had died to defend freedom, he talked about a vision of America where we have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
The interesting thing about Lindsey Graham is that it's hard to gauge what he wants. He certainly loves being a politician. He certainly loves, all the lavish elements of the office. He likes being a senator. But does he have broader goals or ambitions? We know he ran for president and made the very true statement that our country would be destroyed if Republicans nominated Donald Trump. That's played out pretty well, but he's gone back on that. But whenever he goes to a Trump rally, whenever he's out in the public of MAGA, he's quite often booed. Just booed. They don't like him. And it's funny that the two other notable South Carolina Republicans also get the same treatment. Tim Scott, who was debasing himself consistently for Trump, he got himself a fake fiance for Donald Trump, thinking he might be his running mate. He said once, like, oh, I'm not good at saying positive things about myself. I'd much rather praise Donald Trump. Just embarrassing himself. Saying that, like, taking the mic out of his hands and being like, I love this guy so much. He's so great. And what'd it get him? Nothing. Same thing with Nikki Haley. And there's been this Twitter account, this like pro Nikki Haley Twitter. Nikki Haley, what a thought leader. She is pretty high on my list of just like cannot stand. Playing a clip from the Republican presidential primary debate of Nikki Haley saying, we have to stand up for Ukraine. We have to fight back against Putin. We have to defend these liberal values abroad. And the Nikki Haley fans, which I think there are two of them, like, oh, what a leader. Well, look at, so great from Nikki Haley. Who did she endorse for president again? Do we remember that? Your words mean nothing if they are in direct contradiction to your more important actions. And that's what all of these people are like. They have sold their souls, and for it, they have gotten not just nothing, because nothing would be one thing. It's one thing to get nothing. They have gotten humiliated consistently and publicly. Is it worth it? It can't possibly be, unless they like it. Seems like Lindsey does. But they're humiliating. There's no other way to describe it. So I hope you really enjoyed your 8 seconds in the sun or a pat on the back from Donald Trump. I don't know what it is you wanted to get out of this, but it's a good warning for all Republicans. When you come into this administration, you are setting yourself up to be fired, humiliated, imprisoned, to go broke, to have the entire Republican Party turn on you. You have nothing to gain. This is a man who, like our allies, will sell you out at the drop of a hat. So think about that. Republican elected officials have learned that. Republican voters have certainly learned that. When's Lindsey Graham going to learn it? Probably never. So we'll just call him out instead. Seems like a fair trade. And we're going to be doing that every single day on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.